bunch of you guys. Uh, and I don't know, I mean, for what I hear, Quentin's a really good golfer. He's a scratch golfer, is that? Yeah. Yeah, Kim says he always scratches his head after he hits. So, but golf is one of those things that it actually looks simple in many ways, right? There's a white ball, it doesn't move, right? Unlike a baseball, you have to duck unless, if you play in Eva Villages, you have to duck anyway, right? Because balls are flying. But here's this white ball, and all you got to do is just whack it as hard as you can, and it's supposed to go straight, right? But most of the time, something like 86% of players do one thing when they try to hit the ball straight. What do you think it's called? It's called slice. The ball goes, I'm left-handed, so the ball goes to the left, right? And so you'll make all kind of adjustments, and you'll hit harder, and you keep slicing and slicing until somebody gives you instructions on how to hit the ball. And even then, it takes years and years to get it. And in fact, most people are not like 10 handicaps and below. I mean, it's such a difficult game that even Tiger Woods can't win all the time. And in some ways, in marriages, oftentimes we think we know. And I gave you guys some ideas about expectations, how really some of the expectations we may have aren't really quite helpful. So today I'm going to teach you some techniques that are going to have to be simple because, as I said last night, if we can't do it in here in a safe setting, we're not going to be doing it at home when it really happens, right? But it's going to be like playing golf. It'll just not be natural. In fact, I have a saying that goes, stupidity is doing the same thing over again, but expecting a different result, right? So if you find yourself arguing the way you've always argued, don't expect to get a different answer, right? So it'll run so counter to us. And so let me take us through the process. First of all, I want to establish I gave hints about the idea of wisdom. And this is something that, psychology has stumbled on, how powerful the Bible is. And in fact, there's this one pastor, he's become famous now writing books kind of on emotional health. His name is Pete Scazzaro, and he has a series of books, The Emotionally Healthy Church, Person, and All. And he has a saying that goes, one cannot become spiritually wise, one cannot attain spiritual wisdom while remaining emotionally immature. Well, it turns out he kind of stole that a little bit because psychology, for about 50, 60 years, have been playing with the concept of emotional intelligence, although it's been around forever. And the idea being, we know about IQ, right? Some people are just naturally intelligent. Well, there's something they've played with for the past 50 or 60 years called EQ. And EQ means emotional quotient, and like IQ, intellectual quotient, intelligence quotient. That there are people who just know how to get along. They're just natural. They can just seem to flow. They know the right thing to say. When they see somebody who looks sad, they won't go, she looks sad, period, right? They'll intuitively know that you have to go and minister. They'll see certain things, and they can get a crowd going very easily. So they tend to have a higher EQ. They just have a social intelligence and awareness. On the other side, of course, are people that have no common sense. Like, it's obvious, and they can't get it. So that's EQ. Well, the idea behind emotional self-control kind of developed out of that people who develop a sense of learning how to control their own emotional life have, basically can conquer the world, sort of my expression. So the more you're in control of yourself, and I said some things last night, like if you're upset, and these little quips are worth putting down because you're going to go to that just naturally, that if you're upset, saying nothing is always better than saying something. And again, using the example of apologizing when you're really when you're all worked up, right? When you're upset, saying nothing is always better than saying something. And if you have to say something, later is always better than now. And that another one was, if your spouse is upset, or actually anybody, but you can say spouse. If your spouse is upset, then any explanation you give is just viewed as what? Excuses. It's just, and again, I use another one, that when we're either fearful or angry, our heart and mind space closes. Because we're in such a defensive position, right? And mentally, the amygdala kicks in, the prefrontal cortex is overridden. And they actually will do like these PET scans and seeing how the brain works in live time. That when a person faces a threat, you can see the amygdala deep in the brain just sort of, glow and overtake the prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex, just tonight, this is free, pays attention to what they call contemporaneous information, like where am I going to park? Oh, if I park right there, I don't think the fire truck can get out, right? I better not park there. But when you're really upset, when you're really late for church service on a Saturday night, and Pastor Glenn is going to preach a really fantastic sermon, and you've been late all day and you're all upset, but you need God, you park right in front of the fire station, so they got to run over your truck or your car, right? I mean, you just get all upset. We don't even care, right? The amygdala holds all our usually it holds a lot of negative, strong emotions. Right? And I had kind of hinted that in PTSD, or what we see the war vets experience, in which there is a damage to the amygdala, which is interesting because now talk therapy isn't as helpful because the trauma they face is so significant. And many times when I deal with men and women who in their childhood experience severe trauma, we know there's an injury to the amygdala, and it's while we can help them somewhat, it's always a sense of having to manage that. But nonetheless, by developing, and it's something we can develop, is emotional self-control. Many people believe, as I do, that if you can control your emotions, which by the way is what medicine does. The psychiatric medicines that people have to take at times, right? Antidepressants or anti-anxiety medications. Those are the two biggies. In some cases, I kind of briefly talked about attention deficit disorder, which focuses on the damage done or some kind of inherited condition to the prefrontal cortex. They're finding actually more damage done in other areas. But all of these medicines, actually what they help you do is they help you to gain some control over your emotions. Because most people, all of us, I dare say every one of us, actually make decisions more by our emotions than our thinking. Again, using the example, if you're really late, for something, and maybe you're really angry, and you have to get to church because in 2 minutes you're preaching, right? And what it says there on the Makakilo stretch of freeway, it says 60 miles an hour or 55. You know that. Somebody could give you a test of memory. What's the sign say? You know that. You know that if you go too fast, what would happen if you drive too fast? What are some things that can happen? You get a ticket. What else? You get an accident. You know that. But when you're all worked up and you're really late and you're the preacher, what do? Right? You go fast. You override it. Why? Because of how you feel. And when the cop pulls you over, right, you see the blue light, you go like, oh, man. See, it's her fault. Or, you just find somebody to blame, and you go like, oh, man, it's not like you didn't know. Right? It's just that your emotions control you. In many ways, when you look at TV commercials, what they do is they they prey on your emotions. If they can, I mean, how many times I found myself getting ready to go to Homeworld, right? At 11 o'clock at night, or wanting to order a pizza after I had dinner, right? Because they play with your emotions, right? They make the pizza look so good, everything looks so wonderful until you get the check or the bill. Right? And so as we can manage our emotions, and I'll give some hints too, we actually learn to control ourselves. Okay, so ultimately, if you don't learn anything today, learn this part, which is, if I can manage my emotions, I can be in control. Or it actually is, when you're calm, your insula is really working. We talked about that. But that's that gut feeling center, which my brain says, my psychological brain says, I think that's where the Holy Spirit will tweak you a little easier. Okay? Proverbs 17:27. Whoever restrains, Proverbs 17:27-28. Okay. Whoever restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. Even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is deemed intelligent. See? So if you're not that smart, don't say too many things, because then they think you're smart. Right? Well, what's kind of interesting is this. Whoever restrains his words has knowledge. That's probably the best capturing of that word right there. Right? Is whoever holds back. It's holds back. Right? His words has knowledge. And generally right there, the writer is talking about when things get difficult. Right? You hold your tongue. And the second part, and he who has a cool spirit. Interesting, the word there in Greek can also be translated as he who has a chilled spirit. Chill. When you chill, you're less apt to do anything crazy. And for our purposes, when you say something out of anger, it could be misinterpreted, right? So, okay, so Proverbs 17:27-28, James 1:20. Anybody know that verse by chance? For the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God. If you think about the word, when you get really angry, he blows his top, loses his cool. Right? He's beside himself. So you're really getting that wrathful, that angry. By the way, is anger itself a sin? No, of course not. Right? Not getting upset. But we're talking about raging. At this point, raging doesn't make sense. Okay? Then 1 John 4:17. I must have had an awesome morning because when I wrote this, because I only needed one verse out of this. And that verse is nowhere to be found. Verse 18, there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves torment. But he who has fear has not been made perfect in love. We love him because he first loved us. And I think what I meant whenever I was getting that moment was we had talked about, like, fear is just one of the core issues for women. Not that it isn't for men, but for women. When you become really scared, that it can overwhelm you. In fact, when we went home last night, I went home and I decided to spend some time, because I have a second job, and so I went home, ate something, and because I probably you don't know that I'm also a security guard. I watch my TV, so and I had to hurry home because I didn't see in case anybody stole it. You know what I mean? So that was my job to watch the TV. That's my security guard job. So my wife comes in and says, I'm going to call his name George. I don't want to use his real name. George says that his wife hasn't come home yet. And his wife has a very dangerous job. It's a high risk job. She's with high risk people. And he said she should have been home 3 hours earlier. And he obviously couldn't get a hold of him. So he's driving around all around Kapolei. And my wife wasn't answering her phone because she was listening to somebody very important last night. So, she told me, she says, guess what? George called and said, it's been 3 hours and he hasn't been can't get a hold of Sally. And then remember what was one of those things that kicked in? I told you last night that initially, because I know of her job, and my wife does too, a wave of fear kind of just welled up in me, because she takes a lot of risks in a risky job. And but I just shut down because I'm going to be cool, right? So I said, oh, she didn't come home. Well, where do you think she could be? But the good thing is my wife actually, as excited as she can get, she also knows that at this point, she's got to be in charge of herself, and just thought about it. We talked it over. She's probably at the gym or something, right? But for an hour later, it was very difficult. And the husband was freaking out, and poor guy, right? And then it turns out, right, my wife comes downstairs and says, oh, yeah, she was still at work. She was in her office. She had forgotten her cell phone, where her cell phone was. And not only that, she had already told the husband earlier in the day that she was going to be late because just a lot of paperwork, right? So I didn't hear what happened when she got home. That would be interesting. But the idea that my wife actually talked the husband down a bit, right? It's because she would have given the phone to me, but I was working at that time, Security guard job. Okay. And Philippians 4, 5, and 6, let your gentleness be known to all men. The Lord is at hand. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And then what? And the peace of God which passes all understanding. And life is kind of unfair. God sometimes doesn't give us, clearly he doesn't give exactly all the same talents and gifts. People who are most fortunate, by the way, and you can probably tell, is people who don't get too worked up too quickly. And people like me, I'm at a distinct disadvantage because I can just get worked up. But the idea, and so constantly, this verse actually is something I go back to a lot, that, because in Kekaha, the way we translate that is what? No worry. No worry. Why are you worrying? Why are you worrying? Right? God's in control. God's in control. Right? Okay, next. We can predict with 90% accuracy. For the past 25 years, we can predict with 90% accuracy which of your marriages will fail even before they start. Will either fail or be dissatisfactory even before the marriage starts. I had hinted that, and there's a resource in the back there of that book there. It's a great resource. I'm not suggesting you read it. It's a pretty dense book. It's just huge, called Fighting for Your Marriage. But these are the authors, again, that were my trainers or my instructors. And so they've been doing work in couples for a long time. But they've gotten down to where, and they were teaching us how you can spot couples in the engagement period that are in deep trouble. And so we actually have that predictability, and we've known it for 25 years, just saying like, wow, you're in trouble, you're in trouble, you're in trouble. And most people think that the reason they fight is because they have a disagreement. I mean, you would think, man, that's kind of obvious, right? percentage of spouses feeling that when they argue with the other one, that it's really the other one's fault. Okay, so husbands tell me that they feel like 223% of the time their wife is wrong. That's what they feel, right? And the real thing is, percentage of couples' arguments due to misunderstanding, 90%. 90% of the time, and this is that kind of like playing golf thing, 90% of the time, when you're arguing with your spouse, it's a misunderstanding. It's just hard to, and we'll play it out and you'll see it, but it's hard for us to grasp. The idea is misunderstanding. And it even goes further. Research shows that if you're upset with your spouse, then you have misunderstood your spouse 90% of the time. So if I'm upset with my wife, Gail, that means that I don't get it. That it's really a misunderstanding. That the reason why she is late, right? And my wife she's not here, so I can talk stink, but it's my daughter knows, and I've trained her from the time she could talk and understand that there are two kinds of people in the world. There's rabbits and turtles, right? So Dad is a turtle, Dad, right? And Hope is Dad is a rabbit, right? You know, and Hope is a rabbit, and Mom is a turtle, right? Mom is late for everything. Dad is in the car with Hope, ready to go, and Mom is making sure the house is totally secure, right? Even though we have a watchdog. But the thing with being rabbits, and you all know, if you're a rabbit type, is you get out of wherever you want to go fast, but you forget a lot of stuff. See, turtles, they take a long time, but what happens is when you get there, they have everything. So that's why God put rabbits and turtles together, if you didn't know that. Now, there are often times where my wife is late. And what do I think when my wife is late for whatever it is, right? Oh, Gail, Gail's about half hour late. You know what? The reason I think she's late is I bet you she bought that $600 driver I was looking at Roger Dunn, and she went to hide him at Dad's house, right? So she's taking time because she I like snoop around Dad's house to go find something. So that's why she's really late. Man, that's awesome. My wife is so awesome. She's late, but she's really bought me a $600 golf club. Right on. Yeah, no, come on, right? She has no respect for me. Doesn't she know I'm Dr. Akamine? Appointed by God to do his work, a servant, a prophet, somebody who needs to be submitted to, right? I go for the worst possible explanation. Right? So that's what the human tendency is. You saw the danger signs, and some of you actually probably went down the list and says, honey, you have all of these, right? Or we have all of these danger signs. And if you look at everyone, what it is misunderstanding. So a lot of it is based on misunderstanding. 90% of the time, if you're upset with your spouse, you don't get it. But what is the feeling that we have? When I'm upset, I think my wife is low. But we know she's not. My wife is brilliant. Why? Because she married me. That's right, okay? So that's what you tell yourself, right? But that's not the experience I have. That's why I said it's sort of reverse. It's like golfing, and in order to hit the ball, interestingly, in order to hit the ball, it's kind of hard. If you try to hit the ball, because maybe the ball is going this way, so you swing this way, so the ball go this way, but you know what? The ball go worse that way. It's counterintuitive, but if you want the ball to go straight or this way, you got to hit this way. It's just weird. That's the nature of golf. That's the nature of golf. So why did I tell you this? Because if you're upset with your spouse, you don't get it. So guess what happens in most couples, right? Two people upset. So two people don't get it. And so two people who don't get it are trying to solve a problem. That's kind of crazy, right? So tell yourself, and if I'm upset, I don't get it. I don't get it. That's research-based, it's solid. You will find yourself there. So next time your spouse is late, don't go there, like the worst possible explanation. There she's doing it again. You watch, see? See, she's trying to make me a fool. Or he doesn't care, he doesn't love me, right? But think of a good reason. Well, actually, you don't have to, but just hold back, right? Hold your tongue, restrain it, chill out. 90% of all fights are misunderstandings. So when I'm watching couples fight, and I generally let them fight a little bit in my office, just so I can get an idea and so I can play with them a little bit. And it's clear. I mean, Pastor Glenn and we're going through the exercise. He's going to be one of the guys that's going to make sure you're getting it right. And if you get it totally right, he says you can decrease your tithe by 10%. No, only kidding. But I showed him this one slide. I said, Glenn, look at this couple. And it was just a 1-minute clip. And how many fights did you see? He saw one. I said, no, Glenn, there were 5 arguments. In 1 minute, what he saw was one argument. It was really 5 different arguments. And yet they were trying to solve it. So 2 people trying to argue over 2 different problems, which is generally the nature of when couples are arguing. Right? One is arguing, how come you didn't pay the bill, right, kind of thing, on time, and then somebody says, you don't really love me, and it gets all mixed up, and we'll see that played out. So 90% of that, at the very least, I want to tell you that 90% go there and say, it's a misunderstanding. Right? And so if it's a misunderstanding, what should you do? If the problem you have is a misunderstanding, what should you do then if you're upset with your spouse and the issue is misunderstanding? What should you do? It's one word, starts with A. Who said ask? Very good. You win, you can have an extra banana. It's ask because it's a misunderstanding. So, should you tell the person more what you're thinking about whatever the problem is? Should you continue to explain? No. Why? Because silly, right? Because the issue is if you're upset, you don't get it. So it's okay to tell your spouse, you don't get it. Farouk, you can, but we'll do it nicely. Okay? So I just want to nail that for us. It's misunderstanding, marital oneness. Okay, here's another. This is a 50-cent word for at least for Keikaha. Okay, it's validate. Right? Validate is to acknowledge the other person has the right and ability to share his or her emotions. Validate. Well, anybody know what validate? How do you validate? Let me see how I don't want to insult your intelligence. How do you validate your spouse? Anybody, any ideas? How do you acknowledge them? Right? You trying to understand where they're coming from? When you're getting scolding because you did something wrong, if you validate what your spouse is saying, do you say, well, what about you? Well, no, it's not, right? I mean, it's really subtle. So if you're getting scolding, even if you're only 1% wrong, right? Validate would be what? You don't have to even say anything. In fact, if you say something, it'll be what? If you say something, what would it be? Starts with E. Excuse. Right? So you lose, right? So validation is to give the person the right, right? So, right? The epilepsy invalidation, right? Which is more with teenagers and kids. My daughter is beginning to have seizures because she's doing this more, right? But that's not. Or yeah. We may have to practice that today. Okay, we will. Right? Okay. Clearly, and guys, don't think we try hide, right? Right? But remember, the woman, they can see, right? That microsecond, the insula pick it up like that. Or what's the other, the mirroring neuron system, right? We try for cover up, right? But they can see, right? But you can figure out because you can just like, even though you mean this, you practice real big, right? Real big. Because if you make a real small kind of like, you go like this, right? So you got to make a real, so, local guys got a real big, real big. If you get plenty Japanese, you can do that. Okay, you can do like this, right? But if you know more Japanese, you're going to look like this, especially if you're Hawaiian, right? I mean, right? So make them real big, right? Or, if your daughter is telling something, Dad, this happened, that's validation. Okay, so validation is literally non-verbally and verbally acknowledging the other person has the right to say that. Has the right to say that. Okay. By the way, I think there's only two secrets we have to learn today. Understanding is what we talked about. Understanding is trying to look at things through their perspective. That's it. Validation, understanding. That's it. In fact, validation is so powerful. My dad, now at 86, has both a hard time seeing really well and hearing really well. But my dad is kind of like my wife. They're like cut from the same Hawaii Aloha, Mr. Hawaii Aloha and Miss Hawaii Aloha kind of fabric. It's just interesting. They're just like that. And one day we were in Lihue, which is on Kauai, the big town there. Keikaha is not the big town. But my dad was, he's driving, a little bit, and by Walmart especially, that's the place to go. And he's like this. And my dad, he's really friendly, and he actually has a lot of friends. I said, Dad, wow, you know a lot of people, man. He goes, not really. I said, how come you wave? Oh, just in case. It's true. Yeah, just in case. Because if I think they're looking like they wave, you wave back. You acknowledge. You validate. Right? We've all been there, right? Somebody, you look at somebody or you notice somebody and you wave to them and they don't wave back. Ooh. Or worse one for guys, you shake your hand and they don't stick their hand out. Oh, that's invalidation. Or you walk in the office and you say, good morning. Wow, they don't even say good morning back. Yeah, you're on the clock already, you gone, right? If the boss doesn't say good morning when he used to, right? So, but that's invalidation. And on the other hand, and my dad, he's deaf. He's really hard of hearing. My father-in-law is interesting. He's in heaven, so I can talk about him because he's all good now. My dad, what he'll do if you're talking to him, and if you're talking softly, he'll do this. I said, you could imagine. I said, Dad, how can you always do this? When you don't know what we're talking about. I don't know, but if you smile and you nod, it works most of the time, right? Yeah, because people think you get it. My father, on the other hand, he's kind of like the exact, kind of not opposite. He's not the opposite, but it's kind of along that same wavelength, I guess. My father-in-law, he has to say something, kind of like his daughter. My wife, right? You got to say that. So, he loves to go Vegas. I remember one time that I was just chatting, and you got to really yell. I'm not kidding. That's my daughter. And I said, so Dad, the weather's been kind of good in Pearl City. Oh, we never win that much. Grandma, she only played the slot machine. Okay, but I wish he just went like this. But my daughter, she just gets a kick. She just gets a kick because he says, Dad, no matter what you ask Grandpa, he come up with something. Yeah. But the neat thing is these two men, in their day, that's why they married well, right? Because they just constantly validate, acknowledge, But that's what you do. So guys, you can get away with it. Just smile, kind of like the guy. You guys heard about the guy? He realized, he wasn't that good of a husband. So did this big Promise Keepers convention. So he went, and he got so convicted at the Promise Keepers convention about how, he really isn't the husband he needed to be. So on the way going home, he, stops off at Macy's, picks up a nice blouse for his wife. Then you go to Watanabe's, pick up, a dozen roses. And they go, oh, shoot, she wants something more, no? So he went up to Nordstrom's, pick up some Godiva chocolate. Oh, yeah, that's right, just like your husband, And so he's thinking, all right, I'm going to do it right. He comes in, goes to the front door. Wife greets him, and she looks at him and just like breaks down crying. And so he goes, honey, what's wrong? She goes, the baby almost choked on the toy, and she ate too much candy, and the boy, he had break, the daughter's American Girl doll in half, and your daughter, she had run away next door, and I couldn't find her for a couple hours, and look, you come home drunk, right? Okay, you're supposed to laugh on that one. Anyway, you guys laugh anyway, that's all right, you get it. Too early. Yeah, okay. I'm going to pay it a little less now. Glenn is keeping tab, right? Joke, no work. Okay. So we validate, we understand, and judge. Judge is, and that's more a guy thing. We try to look for the right or wrong of things, right? She's explaining. The other day, if your wife is discriminating, why did you tell your sister, this, da. And you're thinking, hey, that wasn't the other day. And then you start looking for, is it right, is it wrong in the argument? And remember that when you're looking for that, guess what happens? It becomes what? Invalidation, right? So temporarily, don't look for the right or wrong. Why? Because 90% of the time, it's what? It's a misunderstanding. It's a misunderstanding. So it's the hardest thing to do, and here's a Buddhist word, listen softly, right? So even if you disagree, it's not about disagreeing, it's about understanding. That's the golf swing. It's about understanding, not agree. It's not about agreeing. It's not about agreeing. It's about understanding. Okay, couple things. How do we okay, what I want you to do is now look at your spouse. If you don't have one, find someone. No, you shouldn't do that. Look at your spouse right now, and we're going to practice validating. Oh, wow. Okay, the husband look at your wife and say, oh, wow. Okay, look serious. Act up. Okay, wives, say to your husbands, oh, wow. Great. Okay, you guys, that's A for everybody. Next one is, I didn't know. Man, I didn't know. Wives, I didn't know. Okay, this is hard. This is hard for husbands, okay? You seem upset. Yeah. Because if your wife is yelling at you, most men don't want to go, you say you seem upset. Right? No, I'm dead serious, okay? It's not a joke, okay? It's not a joke. If your wife is angry or upset and you say to her, honey, you seem upset, okay? I can guarantee you, even if that's what you usually say, I promise you, ladies, you're going to freak out because he's thinking it's about the nail, right? But notice how she connected. If you get told, women, by your husbands, wow, you seem upset. It's most guys, why don't guys want to say that? If the wife is yelling at him, why doesn't he naturally want to say, you seem upset? Right? But why don't guys want to say, if the wife is yelling at him, you seem upset? Because it's obvious. It's obvious. I'm telling you this, that's why we got to practice this and just go practice home. Because you'll find out it's obvious, but it's not. Because most of the time, your husband is doing this. Right? Which is called invalidation. Right? But when you say, you seem upset, at least even if he's faking it, it comes close. Right? He's trying. You give him credit for trying. Right? But on the other hand, it doesn't work between two men. Right? 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 If Keoki is all PO with John, right? And he's screaming at John, and John looks at him and says, wow, Keoki, you seem upset. Yeah. He's going to get cranked. They're probably going to crank him. Because that's not how men do it. But women, they do that. Women go, one is like, my husband, wow, you're upset. Guys, tribal guy is like screaming and yelling, even about his wife. The brother not going like this, right? Because, boom, action, right? Right. Even like how men and women are different is, okay, let's say for you men, you guys are losing your mic. Okay. That there's better. I'm yelling and I don't have to. Okay. Let's say that you're due for a raise. You're due for a raise. Right? And you're going to ask your boss for the raise because you really worked really hard the past 6 months. Right? And he kind of mentioned maybe he might give you a raise. So you go to your boss's office, and you're about to enter his office, and then you hear your boss like screaming, yelling, kicking the trash can. Guys, what do you do? I'll check you out later. Okay? Women, think about this. And again, we're different. Not all women and not all men. Okay? What do you think an average, normal, even healthy woman would do? She's going to ask the boss for some time off, right? That extended time off. And she already had some time off because the kids were sick. And so she hears the boss screaming and yelling and all upset, right? And she wants to ask for some time. What do you think the average woman would do? Is everything okay? Right? Wow. What would the guy do? I mean, only nuts guys go like, hey, boss, you okay? And heck no. He might lose a raise. Why? He's selfish. It's about me. Right? Because if he goes to boss, he don't get a raise. He loses, right? He can't go golfing. Right? Versus a woman, all of a sudden, boom, what kicks in? She's relational. So she'll temporarily put herself aside, her knees, and say, boss, you okay? Is everything okay? Right? So guys, men and women are different, and so we're going to learn something different. For guys, actually, it is to say, honey, you seem upset. I mean, for real kind. Hey, it's okay. Right? Guys, it's not intuitive when somebody is raging. You put even if a guy crying and a guy crying, very few guys, unless you're really super healthy, and that ain't me, will go up to the guy and touch him. Hold them, right? What do guys do? It's like football kind. If guys, if somebody is injured on the field, right? And then you rush to see, if your star quarterback is dead, right? And what did some of the guys tell you to do, or even the referees or the coach? Give them space, give them room, right? We give them space, right? So if a wife is upset with us, what do we do? If she's home, she's upset with us, and we know it's us, what do we do, right? We go hit golf ball in the driving range. And guess what happens? She's going to change the lock when you come home, right? Because at that point, what does she need when she's upset? Women, right? Comfort. But guys don't know how to comfort. And I've been there. Like, my wife, I know, is upset with me. She had changed the lock the week before, so I know I got to stay at the house. But you know what? My male brain says, what am I going to do? If I turn on the TV, it's going to be worse for me, right? And if I laugh, if I, joke, would that be even worse? Wow, the only thing I can do is pray, right? And it's really hard to pray for 4 hours, you know what I mean? While your wife is banging all the cabinet and vacuuming and, cleaning everything, and, and then they, Boom, boom, boom. And then your kid's getting it too, right? She's screaming at the kids, you know. And then you want to go like, I got to go hit golf ball, right? But wow, we can't afford changing lock, you know. Oh, that doghouse is small, you know. But it's really what we're trying to teach men is Val, hang in there, hang in. You want to emotionally connect. Right. Okay, now this is the key of all the words before we're going to give a demonstration. We're going to take a break and do a demonstration here in a little bit. But we got to get down, and you'll see the reason why. I want all of you guys to repeat after me. So what you're saying is, so what you're asking is, okay, now look at your spouse. Men, okay, just look at your spouse, okay, while it's cool and calm. Look at your spouse, eye to eye, okay, eye to eye. And men say, so what you're saying is. Okay, men again, so what you're asking is. Good. Okay, women, so what you're saying is. So what you're asking is. Very good. Okay, that's all we need to know. That's actually part of the secret. Are we going to? That's what we do. That's called validation and attempting to understand. Validation and understanding. That's it. That's the key, right? So when by the way, when women, this is another free one, man. I got to give you plenty free kind because you need help. But when your wife is upset and she asks a question, it is not a question. Why did you come home late? You know, remember, or better yet, what's that towel doing on the floor? Okay, that's not a question. Because try answer like, resting. Okay? When you get kids, and you high control man like me, then what you do is say, Hope, pick up the towel, right? Because it's not a question, right? Because what if you say like, what do most kids say if mom says, what's the towel doing on the floor? I don't know, right? That's not the right answer. That's not a question, right? Was it, or another one, wasn't me? Wasn't me? Is that a good answer for mom who says that? No, it's not a question. So why do women, that's what I don't get too. Why do they ask a question when it's not a question? I'm serious. Men's brain, when they hear, what's that towel? They hear a question. Where did you go? They either lie or they'll answer directly. Why did you go to your mom's house so late? Right? What they hear, this is what men hear. Why were you at your mother's house so long? You know what men hear? Why were you at your mother's house so long? You know what your wife said? You should have been home a half hour ago. That's what she said. No, what she said was, why were you at your mother's house so long? Women just have a tendency to make a statement in a form of a question. No, it's true. That's why because in the male workplace, if your boss says, where the heck were you? You know what the boss means? Where were you? It pulls the women nurturing nature. You know what I mean? Right? Oh, you okay? All right, I get away with that, right? But you can only do it twice every 20 years, okay? No work after that, okay? So, guys, you do it. You subtle kind. You change the subject real fast. Wow, honey, you got a haircut. Yeah, no work. And she'll tell you, that doesn't work. I get headache tonight, sorry. No, but anyway. So that's the reason I had said, so what you're asking is. So what you're asking is, you're asking, why did I come home so late? And you know why I'm right? Is because your wife is not going to say, thank you very much for sharing your answer. She's not going to say that. She's going to continue. You should have known da-da-da-da-da-da. In other words, that wasn't a question she was interested in hearing you answer. It was a statement. But it's also validation. I mean, it's just one of those trick things that God threw in after the curse, because, I mean, and here's another free one here. I have found, and don't get a junk marriage just to become closer to Christ. But in my case, because I'm a counselor, is I've seen more loud, people who had junk marriages end up getting closer to Jesus, right? Because they depend on their own power and strength, and they realize, wow, I can't do it anymore. Right? And so, so God has His way to cover us. So what we're going to do now is take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to have a couple here, and I don't know what the issue is going to be, but they're going to expose themselves and show us how this technique works. And I'm going to be kind of working with them on the technique, and then we're going to actually do it individually. We're going to just spread out all over the whole place. But let's take a 5-minute break and come back. Everything you learn here, you can apply to your kids, by the way, in terms of the technique. So we'll see it played out. We have Randy and April who are like, they absolutely don't know what they're doing up here. I'm serious. They have no idea, and except that I told them, come to today's session with a problem that needs to be fixed, okay? So I'm not sure I'll give them the basic rules, okay? And let's go to, look on your notes, and you'll see the Akamine style of marital porno. I just totally made that up. Somebody said, Brian said, I think you should have called it Akamine style, but that's kind of borot. So we just call it Akamine style. And the whole idea, again, is what 90% of the time, why do couples fight? Because they what? They misunderstand. Okay. Just always think misunderstand. So we should spend more time what? Listening than talking, right? Kind of thing. So there's it's called the speaker-listener technique, and we have the basic rules here. It's not rocket science again. All it is one person called the speaker, and their job is to just share what they're thinking and feeling. Okay? Share what they're thinking and feeling, not what the other person should have done or supposed to do. Right? It's not about fixing, solving directly. It's about understanding, and then when you fully understand, then you fix. Right? So it's just about sharing your thoughts and feelings. Okay. So I'm going to play this out, sort of like I'm actually in a session. You're in a session in my office. You're watching a session, so they're getting free therapy right here. So when they come out, they're going to be so awesome that Pastor Glenn will use them as the couple we all should be like, right here. Okay. Okay. So the speaker. Okay. I'll give you the pen right here. So you can use anything in your hand, but the speaker always has something in his or her hand. You can use a card, your speaker phone, your phone, a pen, a pencil. Just don't use a knife. Okay. So that's the speaker. And the speaker's job is to share their thoughts and feelings about why they're upset. Now, it may take 20 sentences to fully express your point of view, but we're going to chop it up into 2 to 4 sentences max. And the only reason is because the listener has to paraphrase or capture the essence of what the other person says. They're going to, in other words, just say back kind of what you heard. That's all you need to do. Say back what you heard. That's paraphrase. That's all you have to do. Okay? So the speaker, if the listener does not accurately paraphrase, and you as the speaker have the right to be 100% understood. Remember that, 100%. You have the right when you have the card or the pen, you have the right to be understood 100%. However, you have the responsibility to explain it well. So if you let the listener get away with, okay, close enough, then that means it's your fault, that you have left misunderstanding on the table. So if you think they don't quite get it, you keep going. You say, oh, that was close, but... Okay, so... when the speaker has finished his or her side, and you'll see it played out, he or she will hand the card or the pen to the listener, who now gets to give their side of the story. So everybody gets a side. There's at least two sides to every story, right? Even if in your mind there's only your way, okay? But we're Christians, and there's only, you know what the only way is? Yahweh. Oh, we get that. You guys get that. Educated audience, Yahweh, right? There's your way, his way, and Yahweh, right? So that's just play on words, and I'm running out of jokes, so I got to make something up on the moment, on the spur. Okay, that's all you have to do. But just to help them out, okay, I'm going to start them. And this is how, say, in my counseling sessions, it would go. So now, Randy, I want you to, let's get you to he needs probably more work here. Just kind of, I was only joking, April. Just for our learning curve's sake. And you guys are going to be doing the same thing too. So, and we're going to actually be, when we start practicing, we're going to go into, I don't want anybody to be nailing. So, there's only a little bit space here, but you can go in the rooms out there, everywhere. Pastor Glenn and I will just make sure that if you get stuck, we'll help you through it. Okay. So, this is what we'll do. Randy, just for our sake, just so that I know you know, say to April, what I liked about you when I first met you was, and you can just put in a word or two. Don't go on and on, okay? So just repeat that. And April, based upon what you've learned this morning, what do you think your first 4 words ought to be?
So what I hear you saying.
So what you're saying is. That's
okay.
5, but in Kekaha, that's 4.
4.
Okay. So what you're saying is that's, and then whatever Randy says. Okay. So go ahead. April, what I liked about, so you can repeat directly.
I gotta think it was a long time ago. No, just joking. April, what I liked about you when we first met was you're always so fun and loving.
Everybody heard that?
No.
Okay, you have to.
Should I hold it?
Yeah,
I gotta talk loud.
Yeah.
Just talk.
April, what I liked about you when we first met was you were always so fun and loving.
So what I heard you say was that you liked me because I was fun and loving.
Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. If you know what invalidation sounds like, this is how. Okay, so say it to April again. Okay, April,
what I liked about you when we first met was you were always so fun and loving.
Okay, this is invalidation. Oh, what? So you think you're fun too? You think you're good to be with, eh? Right? You can see that she so defensive that you would just say back. Well, what about you? You joker. That's invalidation. Okay, so but in this case, April got it. Now, give it to April's turn. It's just to make sure everybody got it. So,
Okay.
Randy, what I liked about you when I first met you was? Wow, you're that funny. Yes.
Randy, what I liked about you when we first met was you were goal-oriented, you had a job, and stable.
So what you're saying is that when we first met, you liked that I was goal-oriented, had a job, and was stable.
Okay, how did that sound? That's it. That's the whole technique right there. It's just paraphrasing. Okay, now that now that everybody knows that they got it, now I even don't know that this is not a setup other than for them. But I don't know what they're going to talk about. So whoever wants to go first, who has the issue? You can always tell who should start because you're upset. So, or a little upset. Okay, and it will go like this. Okay, this is how you bring up a problem. You don't have to use this way, but it's very helpful. When you did X in situation Y, I felt Z because. Okay? Like, when you told a joke about me in front of Rika, I was really upset with you because I didn't think you would share stuff like that, in front of the pastor's wife, because now she's going to have to tell the pastor, like, how ugly you really are. Right? Okay, so you explain, when you did this, in that situation, this is how it made me feel, because. So remember, 2 to 4 sentences, initially it's, keep it to 3 max, If you keep it to 1, what you'll only hear is parroting. In other words, they'll almost say exactly back. So you go 2, 3, okay? So Randy, when you did X in situation Y, I felt Z because. Okay, and I'll coach them through this process. You have the things, so that's what I'm figuring. And most husbands are the difficult ones, so you can do it. Okay, go ahead.
Randy, when you didn't agree with my point of view, when it came to the bank not paying that important check, I felt invalidated.
Because?
Because you didn't agree with me. I don't know, because I thought what happened was wrong.
So what I hear you saying is that when you had a problem with the bank and I didn't agree with you, you felt validated. And I'm sorry.
No, you cannot.
Oh, I can't talk about.
Okay. Same.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I felt that you didn't understand where I was coming from, or I felt like you didn't understand, and that you took the bank's position as the correct one, or was what they were right in what they did, and it made me feel really hurt.
What I hear you saying is that, you really got hurt when I didn't validate what you're feeling about it.
What did I tell? By you taking the bank's position. Because he didn't say that.
Oh,
So
by you taking the bank's position.
That's what you're saying.
So what you're saying is that because I guess it sounded like I took the bank's position, that you really felt hurt about it.
Yes.
Okay. No, you just respond to whatever.
Oh, okay.
You give your side.
Give my side. When after you talked with me on the phone and I was at work, I did call the bank and I found out why they didn't pay it. And basically, I tried to explain to you that because you did it. I know the bad thing is that I texted it to you because I didn't want to argue while we were at the office, but because it was late and I kind of understood what they were saying, and so that's why I, took their position, because after I talked with them.
Oh, too long. Okay. Yeah. No, hang on, because she's got to get paraphrase you
Okay.
accurately.
So what I hear you saying is that you understood what the bank's position was, and that you agreed with them.
Yes. And I know that I might have made it sound bad to you because I said, next time just pay it on time, and we wouldn't have the problem. And maybe I shouldn't have said it like that.
Period.
Period. Right.
So what I hear you saying is, while you understood what the bank's position was, maybe you didn't say it in the best way.
Yes.
Anything else you want?
And, based on what you're saying, I know I should have maybe been a little bit more empathetic. And I know when I came back home, I kind of mentioned it again, so. Can I say sorry now?
Okay.
So what I hear you saying is that despite your agreement with the bank, you realized that you didn't handle it well with me, or you didn't you may have taken a harder stance.
Yeah, I now understand how that it hurt you the way I brought it out to you, and so I understand, that I shouldn't have said it that way.
Okay, so I hear you saying that I was right. No.
So what you're saying is,
So what you're saying is that you realized that what I hear you saying is that despite your understanding of how the situation was handled, you could have been more empathetic, and you are sorry for the way you handled it.
Yes.
okay, so you can hand it to her. If there's still meat on the bone, go for it. Right? Because you want to get full understanding.
When you said don't do it again, or don't pay our bills late, I really felt like you thought it was my fault.
So what you're saying is that when I said, don't do it again, and make sure you pay it on time, that I guess you took it that that I was saying it was your fault, and I didn't mean to sound harsh like that.
Nope,
Oh,
she
no.
didn't say that.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's it. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I forgot.
I felt like no matter what I said in that particular situation was an excuse, and there was no room for thank you, grace.
So what I hear you saying is that, the way I brought it out to you, it was almost not giving you grace or any room for making any errors.
I really felt felt like you blamed me for that problem.
So what I hear you saying is that, you felt that I was really putting all the blame on you.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yes.
I think the whole situation probably wasn't handled in the best way. I guess the time that it happened, because it was, well, you were at home and I was at work, and we weren't together. And so probably that's not the best time to actually argue, and that's why when I first initially sent the text was just mainly to just explain the facts. And I guess I put at the end about just don't do it again, as maybe it wasn't the best way to do it, and I apologize for that.
So what I hear you saying is, even though we were both at work,
You didn't say that.
I know he didn't because he thinks I was at home.
I don't say that.
Oh.
You have your chance.
Play by the rules.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what you're saying?
So what I hear you saying is that it was probably not the appropriate time to discuss, especially since you were at work. And that you realize the text message was also not the best way to communicate.
Yes. So that was kind of our agreed upon way to communicate when I'm at work. So maybe it just was not brought up at the right time and place.
So what I hear you saying is, although we've agreed to text each other while you were at work, to discuss things, this was probably not the way to do it.
Yeah.
I'm glad, or I feel better that we have come to an understanding about the situation. I do feel that the person I spoke to at the bank was possibly not the most informed person, so it made the situation seem, I'll say, simpler than it really was. I wasn't able to get a good explanation, and so I think that's why I felt hurt, because I didn't feel like you understood my position.
So what you're saying is that I guess you were hurt about because you didn't get a good explanation, but I seem to simplify it because maybe the person I spoke to was more clear about what the situation was. So, but I didn't mean to come out that way.
Wrong.
Okay.
So if you could say wrong.
Yeah, I was saying not exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
'Cause, yeah.
So what you're saying is
No,
that
okay. No, I mean, if you can paraphrase. If not, then you could say, no, that's not what I mean. What I mean to say
so what,
is,
Okay, well, that's not exactly what I meant, so let me try again. What I mean to say is that the person I spoke to at the bank could only tell me that the check had been returned with no other explanation. Whereas when you called, obviously you spoke to a much more informed person and explained the situation fully. I felt, in that situation, I felt attacked.
so what you're saying is you felt attacked by my response to your, well, my, so what you're saying is that ultimately you felt attacked by the way I responded.
No. I was, okay, I felt attacked because you had a better explanation than I did. I truly didn't feel like I was speaking to somebody who could help me. And she even had told me, well, the people you really need to speak to are not here. Because I called on Friday, late in the day, at least over there, and they had already gone home for the long weekend.
So what you're saying is that, you know, when you initially spoke to the bank, that they didn't give you very much they didn't give you the information that you needed. And it, you know, appears that when I called them, they actually gave me more information, and maybe the information that they gave me would have been important to you, which you didn't get.
Yes.
What would you have liked me?
Oh,
You don't have the pen, no. Here, we'll let you have the pen then.
I guess given those circumstances, what would you have wanted me to, how would you have wanted me to communicate to you? Or how could I have communicated better to you?
So what you're asking is, how could you have communicated your displeasure at the situation better?
Yeah. I felt that I just went through the facts of everything, and based on all the facts that I had gotten, it appeared that it was more a play. The check being returned was because the bill hadn't been paid on time.
I'm just going to stop just for time's sake, but what did you like and not like about this kind of way of communicating?
I had to hold the pen a lot longer than I would have liked. It's good. I like the idea that I can tell him, no, that's not what I said. Let me try again. Or you misunderstood what I was trying to say. I like the idea of being able to paraphrase and say, this is what I heard, is this what you meant? But it was still kind of hard. It wasn't easy to say really what I felt.
It's kind of stilted too.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
What do you like and not like?
I like that we actually listened to each other and responded to what we said, which was good. I know I normally would resort to just apologizing, which maybe is not the best way to communicate either, which is, you know, and at the same time it was good because we took time to actually say, I understand what you're saying, before we actually responded ultimately with what, and I would hate to use it to defend it ourselves, but that's sometimes what we do. You defend yourself as to why you responded that way. So it'll take practice, though.
Give me a hand. Thank you. Thank you. And kind of like this represents how in real life we are. I mean, it didn't end like perfect and I wrapped it up and everything's wonderful, but it's really two people having a sense that the other person is both validating and understanding. And we're going to talk about some issues they probably still have on the bone, and some of you picked up what maybe some of the other issues that are there, and I'll give you guys some tools to understand that. But that's the idea, is one person talks, the other person sort of listens softly, my Zen phrase, right? Because you want to answer back, you want to apologize, and he realized, through the process how his apology was just meant to almost shut her off, or, okay, sorry, then let's move on, right? Leaving her feeling invalidated, like, So that's the idea. It's just to be understood. It's painful, I notice, most for the guys to have to do that, because anterior angulate circulate cortex oblongata thing, we don't like to feel discomforted. We want to fix it, solve it. But if you hang in there, you'll find that, wow, that by paying now, I don't keep paying later, right? By taking the time now, it helps work it out. So you saw it played out live, right? So what you're saying is, so what you're asking is, so what you're saying is, so what you're asking is. And that's the idea that 90% of the time it's misunderstanding. I'll give you guys more. So we'll go into depth later when you have a chance to practice. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take a full 10 minutes break. However, in that 10 minutes, what I want you to do is not only grab a snack and do whatever you need to do, but situate yourselves. So, no one's really going to care what you're talking about unless it's real juicy. But it's to just get as a couple and practice. And stay in that. Let me see how we're going to do it. Can you guys listen to me from the other front room? Yeah, so I can speak here and you guys can get it. So there's a couple of things I'm going to just run through super briefly with you before we officially begin. So take a break and move your chairs. You may just kind of stay around here, but there's space out there. At least until I power talking, don't go on the parking lot side. You can, actually. It doesn't matter if you go out there. Okay, so let's take a 10-minute break and then move your chairs around to where somebody's comfortable. You can even come up here. No one cares. If you know there's a conflict coming and you haven't in the past handled it in a way that's been productive, if you notice, like, my husband keeps apologizing for everything, and it seems like he's just escaping, trying to really get at it. He just, okay, fine. Yeah, okay, my bad, right? Then this technique becomes helpful to have that deeper discussion. Now, there's a whole nother school of thought, you need to know this. It's called the Gottman Institute. And what they came up with, interestingly enough, was that what they found was if you are to have a discussion, even an argument, a discussion at under 70 decibels. Now, 70 decibels is about like this. If you can have a full-blown argument kind of like this, then what he's found that the couples, they don't have to know any technique. Right? They can actually solve it if they argue at 70 decibels. But it kind of doesn't make sense to me because maybe it's like the technique, it's kind of hard to do because in real life, how do you argue under 70 decibels? Some of us have just very loud voices. And loud voices, interestingly enough, is actually stressful. If you ever work in a high din atmosphere, this means just a lot of noise for very long. After a while, you get exhausted. It's because noise itself actually is stressful. So, but Gottman has a great idea because he found that if you can lower your volume, the people involved can figure it out. Right? Interestingly, if you think about it, just think about it. Why would, if you argue softly to couples without being taught any technique, why would they figure it out? Why would they be able to resolve it to both satisfaction? Anybody, any ideas? You said what? Because you have to listen more intently because, you notice that, and let me diverge, let me do an ADD diverge. Why do people yell? Okay, frustrated, excited. Now, you're very educated because it's in Keikaha, they'll give you the answer quick. Why do people yell? Okay, think like how they do in Keikaha, where only 3 people can read. So, yeah, okay, what do you say? So you can hear, thank you very much. You could be in Keikaha and you valedictorian, right there. No, the reason we raise our voice is so that we can be heard, which is fine if you're pretty far away. But kind of paradoxically, if the person is 18 inches away, if you yell, guess what happens? They hear less. Okay? Along your point, And the reason I think I never got assaulted in corrections was because that I'm dealing with guys who don't have a lot of emotional self-control. So if I match them in terms of volume level, I get them very excited. And when they're very big, which is everybody, and they get excited and they have criminal past, I can get hurt. So generally when they're fighting even to get their attention, I'll like stand there. Hey guys, let's sit down. And like you guys are doing now, right? You kind of like, it forces you to listen. And as you raise your voice, especially, it tends to, interestingly, cause us to pull back. Especially because if we can hear, we can hear. We don't, but if we raise our voice, if you want not to be heard by somebody you're talking to closely, raise your voice. If you want to really make your point, try to speak under 70 decibels. And in fact, if you work for me and actually I have, I've been sort of the boss for 25 years, 24. And there are times I've gotten like beyond upset with the staff. And even when they've done something just absolutely dumb. And they can tell that I'm upset because my voice gets really quiet. I think we need to talk. Like right now, please. And I'm rage inside. It's, but I really want them to hear me, right? So, I don't think we need to do that anymore, right? So, but it's that, we start from the beginning, emotional self-control. So part of this technique actually forces you to kind of lower your volume. It naturally does. That's why I love this technique, because if you listen loudly, you can't hear the other person. Listen loudly means they're talking and you're already answering in your head. You already have a view already. And some of you don't even, no, Hale, I'm not listening loudly. No, you know why? Because you've gotten so used to not even listening. You know already. You've been married 20 years. You know what they're going to say already, even before they say it, which automatically means you're going to be in trouble. So, again, if you don't, at least on a day-to-day basis, and there is something to, and I thought you guys were going to get there, but we'll talk about, is the issue of respect. Right? When I don't feel respected. And obviously when we talking very loudly at somebody or have a scolding tone, it puts people off because you don't feel respected, especially as a spouse. You're not my mother. You're not my father. Right? So, and again, it'll take a while. It takes a lot of practice. And that's why one of the things is, so what you're saying is, so what you're asking is, until you get kind of used to it. Again, it doesn't work real well. It's golf. That the issue is misunderstanding. Now, obviously I've been doing this like forever, and I still have to tell myself that. I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it. And I hear a voice saying, no, she's not getting it. And it depends which one is louder, right? If my heart is quiet, I get my voice, like, I'm not getting it. She's very intelligent. My wife is brilliant, right? Because she married me, right? Yeah, right? Let's see what else. Okay, now we're going to talk about, and it's in one of the things fast, time where let's go to, and I'm going back and forth just for logic's sake. Oh, there's a lot of these right over here. Oh, okay. Okay. Nope, it's not here. Shucks. What slide is timeout? There should be a timeout slide somewhere. What number? 24. 28. 8. Okay. I guess we've decided that there's a demon in here. Right there. Slide 22. Okay. Now, this kind of is, again, we get back into where my heart is getting still, getting quiet. Timeout, when you call timeout, when a team is basketball team, because it's sort of basketball time, I guess, when they're, does a team want to be called timeout on? Do you want timeout? Generally, do you want the other team to call timeout? No, right? Because the reason they're calling timeout is they want to stop your momentum. They want to throw you off because you're in the zone and you're scoring too many points. So the other team will stop it, or if they're not, they're out of sorts, they're not there, they'll call timeout to get together. Nobody wants to be called timeout on. So but they understand that it's a rule, timeout is a rule that everybody's agreed upon ahead of time. They agree upon ahead of time so that both sides can use it. For our sake, timeout is very important for couples because it allows each to do what? To chill, right? To get calm. Because remember, anger and fear closes our heart and mind space. Anger and fear closes our heart and mind space. So we take a timeout. Timeout is to just get it to chill a little bit, to open our heart and mind, so that when we do apologize, it sounds like an apology, right, Randy? Right? You know, it just sounds like an apology. Right? We have to. So it's really, again, people who will struggle a bit more are people who are naturally more emotional. Right? But you know what? If you're more the emotional type and you really work on it, God gives you more credit. See, for me to be as wonderful as my wife, God gives me more points. My room is getting bigger in heaven because, see, for my wife to say the right thing or do the right thing or be calm, it's natural. She's born with that tendency. For me, like, it's really hard. So I have more opportunity. Kind of like when you see those high diving guys, you know, when they stand up on Olympic thing and they jump, and some guys, they just jump straight, they go in, and perfect dive, but they hardly score. Why can't they score a lot? The difficulty is really low, right? You know, then other people does a triple somersault, backflip, sow cow, and right, they get way more points because it's more difficult. So for those of you who are more emotional in your life, and that's why your spouse married you because you brought a lot of energy. Now they don't like the energy, but too bad for them, right? So for those, you know, it really, how much time, contemplative prayer, all those things you need to, then we'll talk about in a brief second how you can do that. But timeout is meant to chill out. Okay. Now, how do you do it? Number one, the rules are you can call timeout for any reason. And anyone can call it. However, whoever calls a timeout must reschedule the discussion within 24 hours. You know, men and women, and I sometimes blame women, but women have a way, it's not always true, of wanting to discuss something serious right before you go to bed, right? You know, like, honey, can we talk? Oh, all right, you know. And, you know, actually, guys, I found when my wife used to want to do that, I discovered, see, I don't have the gift. I really don't. I've been prayed over no matter what. But there's something about right before bedtime that I go, I start speaking in tongues, you know. Problem is my wife cannot interpret it. So discussing serious issues when I'm about to go to bed. You know, and of course, what do? I invalidate that. It's like, you know, I'm too tired. Let's talk later. You always want to talk later. You never have time. You don't want to ever deal with things. You're always trying to run away. Right? Oh no, I just tired. See? Right? You're always tired. But you're never tired to golf. That's different, but different. Or how many couples tell me they have arguments just before the other goes to work? Right? And then by going to work, what? You get invalidated and the lock changes again. Right? And so at that point, sometimes arguments just pop up at the wrong moment, for whatever reason, at the wrong moment. The best we can do is this: both people agree, both of the couple agree that we'll institute a timeout procedure, which means that if whoever can stop the argument, say, you know what, honey, time out. Can we talk after dinner tonight? Or when I come home from work, let me just sort of and I think we have an hour. But it has to be within 24 hours. So it's not avoidance. It's not to discuss the issue at an inopportune time. And that's it. Okay. The other one is that in order for timeout to be effective, during the timeout, your job is not to rehearse the fact that you married the wrong person. Don't rehearse the injury. So you may say, because all you're doing is you're not benefiting yourself by getting calm. So if you do that, right, that if you time out and what you do is you commit to not thinking about the injury, you can actually time out together. You can say, time out. Let's talk about this after church. And so you can actually sit together during the service. Right? Not like, oh, George, where's your wife? Oh, how come your wife way over there? Maybe she came late. Yeah, right. She wants to keep as much space, right, between you. No, that if you agree on timeout, you literally can time out together. Usually we see timeout as having to go somewhere else to chill. And yes, sometimes we need to, right, to just stay apart for. But again, the longer if you take up to 24 hours, right, that thing, the tension is going to stay in the air. I mean, it's given. So you want to come back to it, but you want to come back in a way that's calm. So during the timeout, your job is not to rehearse the injury. And again, if you're upset with your spouse, what does that mean? That what? That you don't what? You don't get it. Right? 90% of the time, if you're upset, you probably misunderstand your spouse. 90%. Those are really bad odds to go on thinking you're right. So if you're upset, right, but Hale, how do I know? Okay, let me at least give you this. This is bonus. This is really free. Okay? You could say to yourself this, and some of you are more bright than, you think you're more bright than your spouse. So this is for you. I'm probably right, but I may be wrong. That allows you to be humble. I'm probably right, but I may be wrong. Just a small chance, right? Just that small chance. And that small chance is God. Many times it's like, whew. Right? So you're about to unload, which happened to, I think, one of the earliest times in our marriage where I came home and there was this Visa bill on the kitchen table, and I was not happy because back then the Visa bill goes to Delaware. Right? And I always like to cut it close because back then you had a high interest rate. The interest rates were high, so if by holding off paying your Visa bill, the bank will pay you money, right? So you can accrue a little bit money in your checking account. So I timed it really close. So this one time I saw the Visa bill on the kitchen table, and I was furious. I was like, oh my God, now there's going to be finance charge plus interest charge. And if you guys know anything about credit card bills, if you pay if you find out what the interest rate you have to pay because it's late, and you mail that check, do you know that you're in trouble? Because you have to calculate what the payment will be when the check gets there, when they post it. Right? So if it takes 5 days, and so you ask, oh, how much would it be? Oh, okay, today it'll be $3,000 more interest. Oh, shoot, okay, I cover it. And so you write, 10 grand plus $3,000, $13,000. Whew, I'm all good. You mail the check, and you find out you're still in the debt spiral, right? You're still in prison with the Visa because for that 5 days, it's collecting interest, right? So you got to actually, so I call ahead, and I will actually used to say, like, if I mail this, which has happened, anyway, it's another story. But I said, okay, if the check gets to you on Friday, what will the total charge be, right? So anyway, here's the check, and I'm like, oh, there she goes again. She doesn't appreciate why I take care of the finances, and that's why she has no idea. She thinks I just make the money. All she does is look pretty and eat bonbons and just watch TV and go hairdresser, and I'm getting all upset with my wife. Why can't she mail this dumb check? You know, and I hear this voice, Hale, you're probably right, but you may be wrong. So I'm waiting for my wife to come home. You know, I'm pacing, and she comes through the door, and she smiles, and I go, okay, remember, okay, don't assume. So I smile back, we kiss, and inside I'm like going crazy, and I kind of go, how come the Visa bill is on the kitchen table? You know, I'm trying to real control myself because I'm just going to lose it, right? You know, and some of you guys could know what I would have said in what tone. And she goes, oh, man, you know what? Could you look in a check? Could you look in the envelope? And I go, what? Hell, the lucky thing you didn't seal the envelope. There's no check in it. I wrote the check. She goes, well, I'm sure you did, but there's no check. Where's the checkbook? Okay, so I went to my briefcase, and there was the check written to Visa in the checkbook in my briefcase. See, the enemy has a way of like destroying things. See, because the enemy had taken my check that I had written, put them in the envelope, pulled it out, and made a real fit, real perfect, all the perforated thing totally fit. I knew I did it. I knew I put them inside the check, into the envelope. But the enemy just, satanic things happen when you're in the ministry, okay? Okay, so, and she goes, you know what? And she didn't know how upset I was, you know? And you know what? Where's your cell phone? I go, in my someplace. She goes, yeah, it's in the bedroom because I've been trying to call you. I said, oh. Well, okay, so, you know, I guess we just got to mail the check tomorrow. She goes, yeah, just mail it tomorrow. Oh, and I had the whole alternative universe, what really would have happened, right? I would have screamed and yelled, how come you not mail a check? And I would look like a darn fool, and I would apologize, sorry then, and that would create another argument, and then there's more lock changes in our Akamine house, and, right? But I'm probably right. I heard myself say, I'm probably right, but I may be wrong. So just when you're absolutely certain, you're sure that you married wrong and you married somebody dodo head, maybe not. I'm probably right, but I may be wrong. So steps of timeout, you know, that's why we get calm. Right? We get calm. And that goes a real long way. Again, I guess it goes into emotional self-control. See anything else before okay, now about the technique. Anybody has any questions? Oh, you guys are like stunned. Okay, like how hard it's to, yes. If I look like I'm smiling, it's because I'm trying to validate you, but I have no idea what you just said. I cannot hear that. Okay, Jeff's going to bring a mic. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay. Well, just what I'm saying is just watching that interaction with Hale, not Hale, but Randy. The emotional control had to be in place because while they were going on, I was thinking about at home in an actual situation, life situation with my wife. We're usually not that in control. So what you're saying,
On our advice, did you quit while you start?
Yeah, yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
So what you're saying is that you have a hard time getting emotionally in control.
Yes.
How does it make you feel? No. It's going to do the psychological stuff when I don't know how to answer you, like, okay, so how does it make you feel? Whenever they say, how do it make you feel, they have no idea. Psychologists have no idea what they're going to do. They're like clueless, right? But no, on that one, well, that's the thing you want to work on, right? Part of that is learning to, speak a little at a lower volume, right? Again, like most of these things are not quick tips that tomorrow you guys are going to be the perfect couple. This is a lifetime thing, right? Where what the old saying was, right, if you can't say anything good, don't say it at all. I don't agree with that, but I do agree with the fact that if you're too amped, right, if you're upset, saying nothing is always better than saying something until you get calm, then say it. And it is the hardest. It's a lifetime of thing to be able to get calm. Whatever it is, for my sake, I was talking to somebody, and again, because I have some ADD in me, which is why I have to exercise in the morning. I have to. I have to. It's just I gotta bring the energy level, because I just go really 0 to 90 fast. So just going for a walk is helpful. And sometimes for some couples, in order to discuss things, they actually gotta walk and talk, just so they can stay a little bit more in control. But because what the whole technique is this: destructive arguments cost the marriage something. It's expensive to have destructive arguments. Nothing good comes out of destructive arguments. Maybe for guys, but remember, what is bigger in the brain, which means you don't want to have destructive arguments? Starts with H, hippocampus. Just remember that, right? So you're just creating more of a hippo by having destructive arguments, because the brain actually will not want to forget. So we're trying to prevent destructive arguments. So Mary, if you're upset, you're going to, just tell yourself, I'm blowing it. I better get calm. So the whole focus is, and this process is meant, actually, it's a lifetime process. Speaker listener technique is what it's called, to kind of help you get calm. And again, for some of us, it's just going to take a little bit longer, because for whatever reason, we're not the natural calm type. But again, that's maybe why our spouses married us, because they love our energy, but not in situations. Let's see. Any other questions? Let's go for it then. Roots of the issue. Now, let me give you a framing of this. Okay, there are 3 levels of arguments, right? There is something called the events. Events are the things you typically will argue about. Like, why didn't you not have the kids pick up the toys before they went to bed? Okay, in and of itself, what's the big deal? Right. But it ends up blowing up, which should tell us what? That's not the deal only. It is the deal, so I don't want us to ignore or get the idea that Hale says that that's not the issue. It's a deeper issue. No, that also is the issue. The fact that the bill isn't paid is an issue. Not paid on time is the issue. So I'm not saying, but for our purposes of arguments, there's events, that's the surface level, what we see, and it's mostly trivial stuff, but again, it blows up. Then there's something called the issues. Issues are things that you're going to discuss that are going to have a little bit more heat, right? What are these things? Kids, in-laws, sex, religion, money. Any of these topics, by its very nature, it's going to produce a little bit more heat. Not bad, but it is. But then again, for our purposes, it blows up. which should tell us what if it blows up again? It's not just that. Okay, it's not rocket science here. But if it's just too much fire, too much explosion given the issue, it's something else. And what these researchers have found out is that what's going on are something called the hidden issues, which are what gets developed over time in couples who don't resolve problems. Most couples just sweep it under the rug. Initially, to be honest with you, anybody under 18, I know there's one couple not married, so you got to close your ears on this. Usually, when the way couples sort of make up in the early stages of a relationship, they have sex. You have sex, it goes away, right? The husband thinks you can have sex and goes away for the next 20 years. It doesn't work that way. It works for about, 2 months. You know, after that, you better solve the problem, right? He's got to get around to solving the problem. So there's, okay, place light, yay, okay. Hidden issues. And what are the hidden issues? There's just 6. Power. Okay? And think of hidden issues as pockets of magma that are under the surface that is looking for a weak spot. And those would be whether it's issues of child rearing, of money, of your parents, in-laws, whatever it is. And it can surface all the way up to bills. When things start exploding at the event stage, the trivial stage, whoo, your relationship you better start working on some of these things, right? So there are pockets of magma that it's a concept that are being formed over time when the issues are not being resolved. So first one is power. I don't feel I have any power in this relationship. I feel like you're always trying to control me. I feel like you're always in control. Okay, and that's one of the issues. Secondly, acceptance. I don't feel accepted for who I am. You never seem to be happy with me. You're always trying to make me into somebody I'm not. I remember that women marry potential, right? That this diamond in the rough turns out to be a big piece of charcoal now, 10 years later. But actually, if you compress charcoal real hard, come diamond, right? So, but anyway, acceptance is, I don't feel accepted for who I am. I feel you're always trying to change me. Integrity. Your word is not good. I don't trust you. I don't trust you. And so it underlies, so you can see where issues of, let's say finances has been an issue, not being able to resolve finances. And so who made you in charge of all of finance? Why you all do that? How come I don't have a say in this? How come it's always got to be your way just because you have a degree in business? And it is true that many of the people who struggle financially are people who actually either apparently are making a lot of money or are in the banking field. I mean, I've always been surprised how bankers have a hard time managing their own money. And they work for some of the banks you guys I know are banking. Okay, so integrity, that would be a hidden issue. Recognition, I don't feel special in this relationship. I feel the kids are more important. The kids are a higher priority. I feel somebody else is a higher priority. I feel like that the only way I can find out about things that's going on with you is by asking your mother, brother, sister, friend. I don't feel special in this relationship. I don't feel you care and love me. I don't feel cared for and loved. And it's bubbling into some of the struggles you're having. And the scary one is, I don't feel you're committed to this marriage. Especially if there's been, some potential infidelity or something and you didn't get it healed properly and, your wife comes home 10 minutes late and you freak, right? It's like, oh my God, here you go again. You're fooling around on me. Let's just get a divorce already. You have an argument. Let's just get a divorce, right? And who would want to invest in a bank that's going out of business? I mean, right? If your spouse is always saying divorce, I mean, why would you want to commit? Why would you want to do anything? So these are the 6, and what happens is over time, if arguments aren't resolved well, they begin to double up, triple up, quadruple up, quintuple up. So in any one issue, you can have all of these things, so you're arguing and it goes on, and nothing gets resolved. Now, saying that though, Hale, what if we just attack, instead of all the silly things we argue about, why don't we attack acceptance, power, caring, recognition, integrity? And the only reason we can't do it generally is, and we actually can't, is because these are concepts. You can't say you don't care, and then say, no, I do care. No, you don't care. Yeah, I do care. I love you. Well, you don't really love me. I mean, you see, just arguing concepts, you kind of just don't make sense. The other day, when you came home, you hugged the children, you played with the dog, you chased the cat, you cleaned the yard, you did everything, called your mom, but you never even said hi to me. And you could say, so what you're saying is that you feel like I don't care. Yeah. I never see you. Yeah, because you can't. What do you mean you never see me? No, I didn't. I was in the bedroom. You knew I've been sick, and you didn't even come and check on me in the bedroom. Oh, so what you're saying is I should have checked up on you in the bedroom. Right? I don't want to, it goes on and on, but yeah, so we can't argue concepts per se. What we argue are these, the way the discussion works, the speaker listen technique. Don't worry about it. You'll get to the hidden issue. Just start doing the technique. It's after a while you get frustrated, but keep going, because you'll feel like you're peeling the onion, but eventually, if you just push it. That's why I said to them, if there's still meat on bone, continue, because it's going to deeper. And I can actually kind of guess at this point what could be underlying it, but it's for you guys to discover that. So if you feel, husbands, we like to say, okay, power enough, we all good, you good, we go movies, something, we go, power. And if you're young yet, you say, okay, but you've been married 5 years. No, we ain't going to movies. We're going to finish this. Right? So what you're saying is we got to finish this. Yes. Right? So that's, keep the technique. I don't want to speak to the technique per se, because it's really feeling understood and validated. But as you're feeling understood and validated, then interestingly, it creates a safe environment. Why people like counseling, and the counselor doesn't have to be that bright. I'm not. But when you can create that safe atmosphere, which doesn't happen in most couples' homes, then you don't want to discuss sensitive issues because you don't feel safe. And this technique actually, by you validating and trying to understand, it creates a safe atmosphere. But here's one for you guys. You can actually not paraphrase accurately, and you still get credit. So you can just say something like, so you're upset with me because I didn't pick you up from work on time. And that I picked you up from work 2 hours later in downtown Kalihi, where the gangs are shooting guns. And your wife can say, no. But you get credit from your spouse, guys, because you know why? She knows you're trying to understand her. See? They know you're far from perfect. You're under construction. Right? But if you're at least trying to understand, she'll correct you. She won't say, no, you low. It wasn't that. You didn't pick up our daughter. Oh God, my ADD, but, where she stay? No, it's attempting to just try to understand. You'll get credit You'll get crazy. You'll validate. That's why it gets back into validating and understanding. Validating and understanding. The technique allows you to do it all in one simple way. And then eventually you'll get down to the power and carrying issues. Now let me even give you some guidelines, and it'll make you guys, like, some of you guys will think later, so I'll beat you to the question. Can we prevent any of this, Hale? Yes. And it goes like this. Couples that meet at least half hour a week will prevent having to see a counselor. I'm serious. Couples that half hour a week, they sit down and, I don't know, just make a case for Sunday night or something. Hey, honey, what's coming up? What are the things we have to do for the week? So just doing that when, at that point, there's generally not going to be active problems. But you can plan. When you start doing these planning things, hey, what's up for the week? So constantly I try to do that with my wife, almost every day. Like, what's the plan? What's the plan for what's coming up? She goes, I already told you. See, I don't like to do Google Calendar. Because some people, they do Google Calendar, right? You write them on your calendar, it shows up on your spouse's calendar, because it all syncs up. But whatever you do, there's nothing like talking, but it's really couples that spend at least a half hour a week. Okay, fine, go 15 minutes. I don't care. But if you spend that time to say, hey, you'll prevent problems. You'll prevent, that's it. There's no technique. Right, that's it. It's just spending half hour, 1 hour. If you're real good, you spend 1 hour. And, guys, you notice that, seriously, if you start doing this half hour a week, 1 hour a week, your wife will get less headaches, if you know what I mean. Right? She's going to be more receptive, if you know what I mean. So, yeah, because she's being validated. Some chuckles in there because you guys absolutely get it. Okay, questions? Any questions so far? Any questions? Yes, Rick. You could, but what I'm saying is by meeting half hour a week, you actually prevent some problems by discussing, but yeah, use that time, you can resolve it. Okay, when should you are there certain times you should use a speaker-listener technique? The answer is not really. But definitely if your life is too busy, it begs the question that, are you kind of without margins? And this diverges real quickly with, it ends for lunch pretty soon. There's this concept called margins. It was in a book, and I don't know, it was called Hedges before. They changed the name so people end up buying two of the same books. Well, it's a real simple idea is, if you get a piece of paper, and not the ones you have here, but you see those lines there and a red line on the left and the right sometimes? Right? So those are margins, right? Real straightforward. Why do they put margins on the paper? Anyway, there's no one answer. There's many answers. Okay, what's one reason? Why do they put margins on a piece of paper? So what? So you don't go all the way to the end? What else? It's sort of more easier to read, more organized, right? A little bit more structured, just line. Right? Anything else? Why are there margins on paper? Very good, right? That in case you fill up between, I use the margins a lot and say, I point arrows there, right? So in case you need to add extra. Many couples, without realizing it, they live lives without margins, right? That there's no margin. They just run as long as the paper gets. And so when something happens, when somebody gets sick, like when the kids get sick, then all of a sudden it's chaos, right? Then it's going to be costly. That they don't see doing nothing is not bad. It's doing something. That these you have to have margins because in case something happens, right? It's not that big of a deal. And one of the ways is parents and it's not a parenting workshop, so this is not free. You don't pay for this. But the general guideline is be careful about if you have more than one kid about having them in more than two activities. Because do the figuring out. If you have two kids and so you get, let's say they're in 3 activities, these that's 6 activities at different places. And if you're a working parent, both working parents, there's ends up no margins. And there's couples that guarantee will see me. They live in Mililani and they both work in town and they have 2 kids. Because figure out when they got to leave for work and when they got to come home, and the kids got to get their homework done and fed, and they got to eat and feed themselves. Do you have time anymore? No more, right? It's just, and Saturdays doesn't count either, right? And it's a hard thing to do, and it's something that really, it's a personal decision for you, is how much of a margin do we need? I mean, that's one thing I love to go back to Kauai, and God has never led me there, is because there's something about those way where it's just, most people just, I don't know, culture just creates margins. Right? Bombay is such a great word. Yeah, Bombay, yeah, okay, you actually can. And it's are we creating in your kids the need to constantly be in motion? And it's a real hard one for the Akamines, and we go way out of our way to just create major margins. It just is. And my daughter does say regularly, right, I'm bored. And that's actually for us a good word. I'm bored. Because that means that there's margins. Right? And by the way, boredom makes creativity for kids. It's amazing. So doing nothing still can be doing something. It's just that's just my thoughts on decreasing arguments that can occur. Yeah, so but again we go back into, and I want to make it simple and reasonable, is half hour a week, just and put it in stone. Put it maybe Sunday night at 7 or whatever. That's your time. Is it even more important than date night? I don't know, but I'd rather the couple have half hour time to talk about their lives than go to a movie. Regularly go to a movie. I genuinely do. Because going to the movie, by the way, ladies, you should figure out that, my wife figured it out, unfortunately, too early in our marriage, that going to a movie was an excuse for a date for me. Because going to a movie, I didn't have to what? If you're going to a movie, what don't you have to do, guys? Thank you very much. But you did something with your wife, right? So good, right? But it's not, but so we can't go to movies. In the Akamine house, I'm serious. The last movie my wife and I went together was The Passion. Yeah, I was young then. I'm serious, right? I did see Frozen, but that's with my daughter. That's part of our trick date night. So I better start doing it because, no, I actually took her to a tea party thing, but so I had to talk. So, okay, any other, those are preventive things. But the key thing about, and okay, so everybody repeat after me. So what you're saying is, so what you're asking is, okay, now, in 5 minutes, this is the exercise. Just don't be nearly. It's just between the couple. Tell your couple what they do. What's one thing they do? And if you get time in 5 minutes, you can rattle off 4, 5, 6. Don't rattle too many because they can't remember. What do you do that makes me feel invalidated? What do you do? Honey, when you do this, when you give me the face, show them the face if you can. Right? When you do this, I feel I feel invalidated. You know, just so, because we have to go on that part, but that's going to be during the lunchtime. I'm going to spoil your lunch a little bit. So go ahead and I spend 5 minutes. You know, what do you do that, and don't argue about it. Don't say no. There's no such thing as not. Okay, you cannot say no. It says just certain things you do, and just receive it. As difficult, just receive